welcome Ms. Sue Kowalski. She's a middle school librarian from East Syracuse, New York. And she worked as a classroom teacher before coming to librarianship. She still lives in Syracuse, and we're happy to have her here. She is passionate about empowering student leaders through the library and in nurturing the connections in the school communities. And she's also one of our school library journal movers and shakers, and a past winner of the Library Journal Program of the Year. So we are so happy to have you.
So thank you for that introduction. I'm Sue. I work at a middle school in East Syracuse, New York. I just got an alert, breaking weather alert on my phone that said it's going to be unseasonably warm with 40s on Sunday. So just want to break it to you if you feel it was a little cold today. Not the case in Syracuse, but everything's relative, as you know. So the reason I'm excited to be here is because I think we have a story to tell at our middle school that is something that is very specific to our school, but hugely adaptable to, I think, any libraries or any library program. So I'm just going to go through some slides to kind of keep me on track, because otherwise I babble and I go off track. So I'm going to show you this, and then obviously I'll share these slides afterwards if wherever that the portal is for that. So we'll make sure you have access to that. So a couple things that are going to come through everything I'm sharing today is that the concept of leadership is oh so huge. Leadership, librarian leadership. The library itself doesn't lead unless you're doing it. And when I say you, I'm talking about school librarians. So if I'm doing like, well, you need to. If you're sitting there saying, you know what, yep, we do that. We also know there's thousands of us out there who aren't here and who aren't doing it, that you're mentoring, that you're teaching, that you have in your grad classes, that are your student teachers and your interns or your department people in your department, that a lot of people need a shift in the way they're thinking. So leadership is a huge one. If you follow me on Twitter at all or any social media, you'll see the hashtag Lead Out Loud. I didn't do it because I was flying, but I always have a bullhorn in my car that I give away, because I think, you know what, we need to be loud and proud of what we bring to the table, and just like our panelists shared before. The other thread that you're going to see come through in everything I mentioned today is ownership, and how do you build and how do you empower a shared ownership or shared investment in the library, so that it's not like my library, Sue Kowalski Library, and it's our library. It's our library for the community. One of my things I'm going to share later, I don't even know if I'll share, because it's like, oh, look at what I did. But I asked the teachers I work with a lot, would they talk about what we're doing in a school to create a culture of literacy. And two of them talked a lot, but it was like, and Sue does this, and Sue does that. That's not what I was looking for. I mean, it feels good that they're appreciative, but I'm really passionate about the fact that it isn't my library. When people say, thank you for letting me use the library today I just work there. I just live there. I'm very invested. I own it, but so do we all. So what can we do to shift that? So leadership and ownership or investment, I use those words interchangeably. So you'll hear that. And that's something that whether you're in an elementary school of 400 kids or a high school, God bless you, with the 2,000, what was that, 2,600? Or that scares me a little bit. So whatever your setup is, the concepts are the same, that we've got to get people to feel like this is their space too, especially our students, which is our number one. And some of the pictures, again, I'm just showing kind of to make a point here. I got a kid here, Zach, he loves graphic novels. I can't for the life of me keep them organized, and nor do I want to spend that much time doing it. And good thing is he likes graphic novels, and he's got a little OCD with organization. So he's a win-win right here. He comes in, he gets disgusted, he reorganizes stuff. I don't even ask. He's not a student volunteer. He just says, oh, here we go again, Kowalski, and he gets to work. We have artwork all over the place. I work with an art teacher who is unbelievable, and she and I are kind of like a well-oiled machine now, that all the time on the walls. I don't have to order posters from companies and reading posters and think about what I'm going to do. I don't, when people on social media are always like, does anybody have a good idea for a bulletin board for February? Talk to your art teacher. You don't need to do any bulletin boards ever again. Or have kids do it. Say, hey, what do you want to showcase this month? You got a collection at home you want to showcase? Give the spaces up to the kids' art, the kids' words, poetry, whatever it is. And if it doesn't look perfect, nobody cares. So don't stress about bulletin boards. So that's a big kind of anchor wall we have in the back of our library. And I'm at a 6th, 7th, and 8th school, because I know middle school doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And we have about almost 800 kids, maybe closer to 770. This group over here talk about shared investment. A couple years ago, we had guest speaker coming in that I was one of the co-planners of the event. It was an anti-bullying group called Sweethearts and Heroes. And they're really more of a bystander empowerment group and less focused on stopping the bullies. Nothing to do with the library other than the fact that I was passionate about this. A counselor and I wrote a grant. We got a grant. These folks were coming in. So the reason I bring that up is because when they came in, of course, I had some of my student volunteers, my library groupies. I said, would you stand out in front and wave to the guests? Hi, come on in. And the guy who came to present said, oh, that's great that you had those kids out there. And I was, you're welcome. I felt so good. And then he said, do you do that every day? And I was like, no. And he said, why not? I was like, whew. So that was about 2 years ago. This is Alex. He's got his back to you. For 2 years, I swear, perfect attendance. Alex and a group of kids come to school about 10 minutes early every day. They get this wagon of stuff, which has grown every time there's a clearance sale. I add on hats and masks and things. And they stand out in front of the school and they greet kids every single day. It's 5 minutes of just happy. We started out with the big costumes that we do on Friday. That got too cumbersome. Now, kids, and some people will say like, well, one cynical teacher said, do you think other kids really notice it anymore? Because it's not new. Like, it's not unusual now to see a kid in a dinosaur head or me wearing a llama head. I stand out there with them, by the way. Every single morning I open the door and greet the 750 kids that come through it. Good morning, have a great day. Usually I have something goofy on my head, depending on how bad my hair looks that day. I have a full head or a body, and the kids just look at me like, I don't know what's going on there, but they smile. But I said, you know what, this gives these kids a purpose. And not to be mean, but if you were to look at the kids that are in my welcome team, or our welcome team, they're so invested. It's like they were panicked today that I was going to be out for 2 days in a row. They're like, we can still go, right? We keep the stuff in the hall. They have a little area. They come up, they get the stuff, they ride the elevator down, they set up, they clean up. I could probably not be there the rest of the year and they would still do it. And it gives them a sense of purpose. And one of the little girls couldn't come the other day. Now, mind you, it's 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. They're not late to class. They're not excused from anything. And she was upset. I said, what are you crying for? And she said, I missed welcome team. And I didn't want to say, really? Move on. And she said, it's the only time of the day I feel important. When you got a kid who's saying they feel important because they got a llama head on, that's good stuff, right? So they're invested. And these are kids that started out as library people, and we've just branched out. So we've taken the library joy and spread it. So that's leadership and shared investment, really important. So if I were a note-taking in this presentation, this is what I would write down as kind of a graphic organizer of your own. And I didn't make one because I thought everybody's work style is a little different. READS, you know what that spells. And that's the acronym I'm going to use to kind of guide the presentation. So as you're going through and you hear the R, the E, the A, the D, and the S, you might want to take some notes if that's the way your brain works. This is the mission statement for our literacy team, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. These folks on the panel list and some folks I talked to casually today, everybody talked about collaboration in one way, shape, or form. Everybody talked about, I like that expression, the marigolds, the people that you're like, you can count on, like if you were doing that thing where you put your back here and you have to help each other stand up, those kind of people. And that's what I'm going to refer to today. And Pine Grove has done something on a more formalized shift, and I'm going to get to that a little bit. So we've got the general concept of reads, and we're going to talk more about that with this vision statement. Pine Grove is a community that prioritizes literacy growth, I'm only reading it in case it's too small for you, and all students as lifelong learners. All staff will empower and influence students as confident and capable readers. This is our literacy team goal, our mission, our vision. We have a whole document, and this started out of a lot of the things I'm going to share in a minute. Notice it doesn't say the librarian will. It doesn't say the librarian is responsible for all this, or I am responsible. It says it's a community. And I'm proud to say I'm a leader in this movement and a leader in this community, so it wouldn't happen without the library or the librarian, but I am not the only one anymore. So READS. The first letter, relationships. These, I keep pointing to them like they're still here. The panel, thank you very much. They referred in everything they mentioned about relationships, about partners, about administration. You've got to have some relationships to make anything work. If you're the sole person in the library and you don't really get out much past that during the day, you're going to struggle. And again, when I say you, I mean any school librarian, okay? So you've got to have positive relationship, working relationship. There's a lot of people I'm nice to. I wave to everybody in the morning when I'm wearing like a silly hat or, you know, my tiny plastic can that I hold up. That's kind of a positive, you know, like, hi, how are you? But it's not a working relationship. I have a grad student I'm working with, and she's struggling to get the concept of collaboration, even though we've talked about it like incessantly. And I got a little annoyed because she said, well, who would you work with in a school other than your assistant or your aide? And I'm very lucky, knock on wood, to have a full-time assistant who's not only full-time, but she's amazing. So what I did, this was yesterday, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday. I went, and every time somebody came in the library, every time I was with another adult that I was doing something with more than saying hello, I took a picture. So it doesn't really matter the specific what we were doing. So we've got a student I-staff, that's my leadership program. That's my assistant. I had to work with the principal on something. We're getting busing to our Battle of the Books competition. Then over here you've got an ELA teacher. We're working on a March Madness reading thing. Social studies teacher. We were planning something for coming up in a couple weeks. These are the 2 ELA teachers that I was working with. We're doing a research project. We were doing 5 periods that day. This is a 6th grade teacher that we're planning for something, a novel she's working on. Another 6th grade teacher, we got a science thing going kind of on the side. Special ed teacher who came in and said, I have to step away or I'm going to choke somebody. And then this is my amazing art teacher who's just, people think she works in the library because we do everything together. So this is in the course of the day. This is what collaboration looks like. I 100% understand if you're tethered to a schedule that keeps you in the library where you don't even have time to go to the restroom without, you know, disrupting the whole routine. This may be more difficult for some people. But it doesn't mean you can't make it happen. Don't get so tethered to structure that you miss these opportunities. And it can happen in lots of ways. I know in grad school or when I'm in workshops, they'll say, and I love the idea of the professional development, the formal stuff. I would say most of my collaboration is after hours on a text. We're doing tweeting back and forth, sharing ideas. I'd say the formal planning is the minimal or the least of what I do, and the informal getting the ideas going is more prevalent in my world. Doesn't mean we don't actually sit down and then get things going formally, but that's worked better for me. And then these are 2 groups that I was working with, representative of the 6 classes that were in and out there through the day. So I don't show that to say like, oh, look what I did, but to say these are the people that you partner with. These are the people that make everything happen, because if you're not working with them, it ain't gonna happen. The E I put for enthusiasm. If you're not excited about it, nobody else is gonna be excited about it. If you're bored about what you're teaching, so will they be. So when I am in all these social media, Facebook communities about libraries, and sometimes I think I have to step away because it'll say like, does anybody have a better way to do orientation? I'm so bored with it. Like, oh my, it's good that they're asking, but it's like, well then try something different, for goodness sake. What do you got? If you have a book that you've been doing for 6 years or a class has been doing, it's time for a change, because if you're bored, they'll be bored. If you're not excited about an idea, find somebody to help you get excited or drop the idea, because the enthusiasm is going to be the key. I don't mean everything every day, like, oh good, I got a box of things, I got to catalog them, I'm so excited. I hear people all the time, like the book fair, nothing against the book fair, it's not my thing, but if your school's making you do a book fair, then I guess carry on, but if it's causing you agita and you hate it and you don't think it's productive, drop the book fair. Like, find another way to raise money and get kids books. Like this whole, like, I must have a book fair or I can't wear the librarian sash. People love it, and it's okay, but if you're not those people, like, let it go. If you're not excited about doing the bulletin boards, let it go. If you're not into, like, I understand we have obligations. We have things we have to do. We have standards. But we have so much choice. Pick the things that you're going to get excited about. When a teacher comes to me and says, like, well, I got to do this and this, and I'm like, thinking to myself, that one sounds like watching paint dry. How about I help you with that one, because that's more my speed. And now with some people I can be more honest. Other people I just lie and say I'm really busy that week. Sorry Sorry I got to miss yet another ancient China unit, but I'm really booked, but I like the idea of doing 3D book talks, or something like that. So sometimes you have to lie and don't tell anybody what you're doing. Okay, the next thing is action. In a perfect world, I wanted to see R-E-D-A-S, but then I was like, what's a Redis? So my next two words are action and deliberate. So you've got to take action on things. You can't just talk about it. You can't go to a conference, get good ideas, and not do anything about it. You can't see something on social media or wherever you get your learning and not do anything about it. If you're talking about a grant or an award or trying something new or reaching out to a new partner, if you just keep talking about it and don't do anything, it's no different than if you say, which I say I think I've stopped going resolutions. Now I just do it every Monday. I'm going to lose 40 pounds. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to go to the gym every day. Everybody will tell you got to have steps. You got to take the first step. You got to do this. You actually got to do things. So you got to take action. You got to be deliberate. Again, I see so much banter all over social media. Maybe that's my problem. I got to step away from there, talk to humans. But about stuff, there's so much stuff. Like I need an idea for the Wrap the Valentine's books display that everybody likes to do. What do they call that? The blind date with a book. Some people get giddy excited over that. That was the worst week of my life when I did it. So I don't do it. There's nothing in the standard books that says you must do blind date with a book. The kids loved wrapping them. They loved opening them. It was a lot of waste. It didn't work for me. If it works for you, have it every week. Don't wait for Valentine's Day. Do it monthly. Do it every day. Do it at your house. Have your friends over. Wrap up books and unwrap them. But it didn't work for me. And if I were taking action and being deliberate, I'd say, I got nothing out of this other than it kept some student volunteers busy while they wrapped the books and put stickers on them. It didn't work for me. But if it works, go for it, but take some deliberate action. Genreifying, I know that's a huge thing right now. Conceptually, I'm on board on a work ethic or on a work schedule thing. I haven't made it happen yet. We're putting everything by genres. So I'm doing kind of like a hybrid thing right now. So when a kid says, do you have any scary books? I'm like, there's 50 of them right over there. Look there for now until I have time to do the official genreify. So I'm taking action. It's not making people proud around me, did you change the records? Did you do this? Did you catalog? No, I have no time for that. So right now, I got red stickers on books that probably are dangerous, and I got pink stickers. I thought that was good, right? Red, stop, don't go in there. Red, blood. And then I have pink stickers for, it's kind of like a cheating genreify. I call it a hybrid model because that sounds more professional. Really, I hate cataloging, and I don't like anything to do with that whole world, so it's like my diet schedule. I just avoid it and pretend it's happening. Okay, so that you got to be deliberate. Do something that matters. And if I see one more post about I can't make this blind date with a book thing, I'm going to lose it. Okay, that's my business. And then you've got to share. I started with the word showcase. I don't know what it is with our tribe here, but we don't like to say we're going to showcase what we do because that would be bragging. And we don't like to brag, and we don't like to say how wonderful we are and look what I did. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute, what that looks like. So I changed it to share because we are the most sharing, kind, nurturing profession around. Showcase sounds all about me. Sharing sounds all about you. So I switched the words. All right, that I'm going to talk to in a minute because you can't really see it. So this is the shift I want to make. And don't worry about the wording in the document. I just put that as a placeholder to remind me. I 100% believe in these concepts that are under read. I 100% believe that if the librarian isn't the leader of this, it's not going to happen. I also acknowledge that you've got a lot of obstacles, as my disappearing panel mentioned. They talked about administrators not buying in. They talked about teachers. Those 4 folks that are working in 18 schools part-time, there's obstacles out there. But if we don't take charge, it ain't gonna happen. So we have to be in a leadership position. If you have the luxury of having more people in the building who say, you know what, we would be good as a good team. So here's what happened at Pine Grove. And again, this is very specific to my school. Concept is 100% adaptable elsewhere. Probably logistics, not so much. So as I was telling some folks when we were kind of playing around with the technology, 4 years ago, 5, maybe 4, our school closed totally for 2 years for a renovation. So think of everything. I felt like the Grinch. I was like, I have to take this and I have to take this. Everything went. Library, every square foot. We moved to 6 locations. So a middle school moved to 6 locations. we all survived, and now we're back in this nice, big, beautiful building. So it was all planned. It wasn't because of a bad thing. It was a planned renovation. But in the 2 years that I was a librarian without a physical library, because I floated and all kinds of weird things. So I got thinking about the people that I partnered with and how cool would it be if I had a team, like to help me deploy things. Because when I wasn't in that one building, I felt like I had permission to say, you know what, well, I'd like to help you with that today, Mrs. So-and-so, but I'm in this building today, but let me see if whoever could maybe help show you that. So then I thought, how cool would this be, even if we were under one roof, if we had of course, I always had myself at the top of the team, because that's where it should be, and then how could we get other people to kind of deploy all the stuff we know, kind of like the turnkey stuff that a lot of people talked about. So there was all kinds of, random things that won't bore you with the details. But what happened with some changing configuration of our staffing, there was a movement to have a content literacy person on each academic team. We have teams. And I thought, these are my people. I'm going to have me and my content people, and together we will conquer the world. So fast forward 1 year, everybody was miserable, and then they're like, I thought, everybody's like, aren't you afraid of your job? I'm like, what do you mean? They were like, well, they're doing the same thing you're doing. I was like, oh, no, they're not. So it became this turf wars thing. I don't think for me, well, I can't lie. I got a little defensive, like, wait a minute. It became more of a barrier position instead of a collaborative position. And I thought, it's solvable, but we're not there yet. And we kept hitting roadblocks, because now, Susie librarian, and then we had 6 content lit people, who were doing the things that good librarians do, like how do we add picture books to the social studies unit? How do we do some good note taking? What tech tools can we embed? So they were doing it. But they were, I want to say collectively miserable, but mostly they were miserable because they couldn't keep up with it. And nobody wanted to work with them. It was just this whole, teachers and change, and that's never going well. So one of them came in tears, which always tears is a good game changer. And I said, you don't ever talk to, we don't plan together anymore. And she's like, I can't keep up. Nobody wants to work with me. How do you do it when people don't want to work with you? I was like, who doesn't want to work with me? Why? But we had this moment of everybody accepting that they didn't like how it was going, but there was that job security thing, like I can't tell anybody I don't like how it's going, because what if they say, well, you know what, if it's not working, we don't really need you. So I said, there's got to be a way we can figure this out. So we were just making some strides, slow ones. In comes a new person for a new associate principal position. She started asking the same questions we were asking, but she was an administrator. So she said, now I don't understand. If you're doing content literacy, what are you doing? She asked the questions that needed to be asked, so that fresh set of eyes. So again, the structure of how our crazy thing went might not apply to you, but getting somebody neutral to come in and ask, and she wasn't really neutral, but she was new, fresh set of eyes to say, I don't get it. Well, are you doing library classes? And she's doing tech classes, but he's doing social, whoa, like that, and she's kind of was blunt and was wonderful. So because of her leadership, and because we were kind of on the cusp of doing those things, we ended up forming a literacy team to figure this all out. So fast forward 2 years now, we're going into our 3rd year of having a literacy team. We meet every other week as a formal group with her, under her direction, her meaning the associate principal. We spent a lot of time, last summer, we put together a vision, a mission, goals. We'd go through the PDSA cycle, the Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's a formal group that continues to expand how we address literacy. Our focus is all literacy. Here's what it's done. And again, the details of our group is very Pine Grove specific, but the concept is this. There were people all over the building doing great things related to literacy, but we weren't in sync. I was doing this, and I'm sweating because I couldn't help that 7th grade social studies team, and then this one was embarrassed because she's supposed to talk about books related to Civil War, and she doesn't really know it that well. And then she's scrambling, and this one's going to teacher pay teachers for everything, and I got databases that aren't being used. I was like, whoa. So now we have this, it's almost like a support meeting, because people come in and I don't know how to use the databases. I have no idea what, whatever. So people confess what they don't know. What has happened is, and this is what needs to happen if you're a librarian that's thinking, I can't keep up with all the stuff I'm supposed to do and do it well, you got to get other people on your team to make it happen. So because of this team, we now have permission to specialize, permission to tap into each other's strengths, and support to try some new things. So now it's like if somebody asks me about reading tests, and we happen to use iReady for a data assessment, I think it's important to have that as part of our program. It's not my specialty. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, and before I was mortified. If you said, oh, the iReady, I'd be like, yeah, now I'm like, you know what? I don't really know all that but Patty does. Patty is like the reading specialist, and that's her world. Likewise, she comes up my way all the time saying, I need a better way to do this. And then we've got other folks that are specializing on strategies, and then we work together. Now, this is a formal structure in my school, and it's working well. It's not perfect. We don't have everything figured out. But if you don't have a formal structure like that, start to see in your allies, when you collaborate, who's going to specialize in what, so that you have time to deploy all those great resources. So even if somebody says, Nicole did this great thing with graphic organizers and note-taking, or whatever it is, a process, then put Nicole to work elsewhere. Like, Nicole, could you do me a favor? Could you share those documents with, Jen, because she's getting ready to do that. And take yourself out of the keeper of all things and keeper of all strategies and free yourself up to specialize in new things. And the more people who feel empowered, the more successful we can be, because we're not, sometimes I felt like I was just doing the same thing every day, and I'd get the dreaded invite, can you come in and teach citations? Like, no, give me something fun to do. That's horrible. Like, I don't want to do citations. So it switched it up where I'm saying, you know what, like, no, so-and-so did noodle tools last week very well. I'm going to have her send you what she did with her class. And it's not passing the buck. It's just dividing the buck up into special areas. So again, I can share this with you if you want, but this is the big thing that did. And in our case, we have these content literacy, and we have a different kind of weird schedule. But the thing is, it's a community goal. It's a community goal that we're all in it together. Well, not all. I'd be lying if I said we're all in. But, most people are in. And the reason I put this in as placeholder, and it's really blurry, I got it at the last minute, but our iReady people, our data people, looked at this and said, we're making good strides. All right, we're moving more kids from red to yellow to green. If you just think of it as kind of a logical red, not good, green, good. We're moving more kids consistently. There's more progress being made. Okay, so this isn't a discussion in data, but you still got to know if you're doing all these good things and kids still can't read, then we're not doing the right thing. So we do have to keep that in mind and keep our eye on the prize. Yes, we want to develop a love of literature, a culture that's exciting and enthusiastic and fun, but we also need to make sure that we're developing competent and capable readers. So now think of those words I mentioned before. Now think of it and relate it to, I've got this healthy, more vibrant partnership, collaborative team that's working together. So this is kind of how it looks like. And I'm going to I think the sound will work. So I asked some teachers to share, some of my partners on this lit team, and if it doesn't work because of things, to share what it is that they think is helpful with this collaborative group. I think it's a Wi-Fi thing. I'll keep moving, and if that comes up, I'll go back to it. Wait for it. All right, it's not a game changer if we can't, and I'll share those at another time. So here's what the changes we've made. So we talked about collaboration, and then pretty much the theme you'll see on these, and if we get these to play afterwards, I'll put those up there. But you've got teachers, some who are already my partners. They were my go-to partners 5 years ago. They were my go-to partners when I didn't have a library. They were my go-to partners when we were just talking about this concept, but there's been some more adapters. There's been more people, even ironically, our ELA department chair, English Language Arts, well, I think everybody says that, but I don't think she was I don't know what was going on there, but there wasn't a whole lot of like, we love what's going on in the library for whatever reason. And then she added a video, which surprised me, and I was like, oh, I think she's excited. Maybe she just shows it differently. So with this new, where is it? So we got relationships. What does it look like? This is what it looks like here. So this is my amazing assistant, Barb. What it looks like with our relationships, because now we have more permission to specialize. I have taken my stress over being at every class to show every citation and every this, and I'm focusing on what can we do in the library to get more kids in, more teachers in, to promote literacy. This kid we saw, he's got some hearing issues. He doesn't like being in the cafe or for lunch, so he sits in the hall, but he had his friends that he was eating with, but he has peanut butter and jelly every day for lunch, and his friend is allergic to peanuts. So this poor kid went from like, I have no sound, I got sound barriers, now I got peanut barriers. So we saw him in the hall, so now he comes up every day after his lunch and sits and reads in the library. So the relationship thing is that, you know what, now I'm not so stressed about trying to get to every classroom to do everything, that some of these things we can just make happen. I feel like we're more present in our space as opposed to like frantic. And the fact that Zach is organizing the graphic novels, I really have nothing to do except, no, I'm kidding. So the relationships is, like in the morning, I felt like it was important for me to be in the library to deal with any of that before school business. On the other hand, the teachers also know how important it is for these kids to have a purpose outside. I can't be in two places. Now the teachers say, if you need Miss Kowalski, she'll be in the, with her goofy mask on. Go see her down there. Library will open after they're done. It's more of a buy-in instead of like, what are you doing in the library? Because everything is more transparent. The enthusiasm. Now, I've got a kid who comes up to me. He says, you got any cardboard? I was like, yep. He goes, want me to make you something? I was like, yes, I do. Like, what are you making? And he goes, I'm going to make a cardboard. I don't know. He went on and on. Some of the kids get like, and then it's going to have this and a lever. And I said, well, when do you want to do it? He goes, I'll just come up when it works for me. And I was like, yes, sir. So for over a course of a couple weeks, he was in and out to the library, I think at approved times. I'm not really sure. But he built this, like, dispenser where you can put the books in if the library's locked, so kids can drop off their books there. And he just did it. It wasn't that kid, the kid that doesn't like his picture taken. But so he makes this, and he brings family and friends to say, yeah, I made this. And because we've got artwork on the wall, kids are coming saying, that's my art, that's my pottery, that's my kind of thing. And again, because there's more people involved at these meetings, these collaborative meetings or partners, and you mentioned that the more people know what's going on, the more, I don't want to say forgiving, but the more buy-in there is. So instead of saying, what the heck, Kowalski, where is she that you can't open the library in the morning? Now they're saying, she's with the welcome team. It's a known factor that I'm out greeting people in front. And they're not as angry, and most of the time they're sending kids in the morning just to get rid of them for a few minutes anyways. I know the drill. All right, this kid comes in, and now because we have more buy-in with our kind of collaborative thing, we're doing a reader's choose thing, where not that it's a rocket science concept, but teachers are given more time for kids to read in class, more time for kids to come to the library, to browse for books, to select books, to meet with me, to hear book talks, to do book tasting. All of those things are happening because, and I know we mentioned it before, top down, we got an administrator saying our literacy goal is this. That we did a survey at the beginning of the year that said most kids do more of their leisure reading in school than at home. Statistically, in our community, it may be different in your community. So we said that's such a solvable problem. We need to give more time to read in school. And the game changer for me was I had a student, and she's like, oh, I'm so excited. Guess what tomorrow is? And I assumed it's birthday or boyfriend or whatever. And she said, it's state testing. I was like, yay! What am I missing? And she goes, and I know, I won't go down that state testing rabbit hole, but she said, but I'm opting out, which is a thing. And I said, yay! I said, so are you staying home? What's the deal? She goes, no. I'm opting out because the kids who opt out come to the library to read. She said, I figured out how many hours it's going to be, and I can finish 3 books. Now, tell me what's wrong with that. That's wrong and right all mixed together. Because she's like, yay, I'm opting out of the state test. I can have time to read, and it'll be quiet because nobody can talk. I was like, oh God, we failed miserably, that she's so excited to come down. But it's top down, and everybody's like, what do you mean you're not giving kids time to go to the library? I swear, just in the course of 2 years. 2 years ago, I'd have the flurry of kids. I just got to get a book. We're doing a test. We got to have a free read. I'm getting checked today if I got a free read. They would take anything off the counter. Now, kids are like, now they're a lot of work because they're like, well, I'm on the 5th one of the series, but I want this, but I want less of it. But they're informed browsers now. And we have a fast track pass that they don't even have to speak. They're just like, ooh, I'm in. And it just says, I have book needs. They're really kind of dorky passes, but they wear them like, I'm so cool with this. I'm like, whatever, they're coming in. So they're not all like this. This is what this kid takes every week. And I keep thinking he's not reading them, but gosh darn it, I think he is. And, you know, before, the teachers would say, just take one. And if you've read it before, you can't read it again. And if it's graphic, it doesn't count. There are all these, like, kind of tethered beliefs. So now teachers are like, Josh needs to come in and get his weekly collection of books. That's just for him, by the way. That isn't a class set. All right, so the action and deliberate. Remember, I didn't like how those were used. So one of the kids said, you know, they say things and you get defensive, like, I'm too busy. Some kids said, well, how come you don't ever come down to lunch and talk about books? And in my head, I was thinking, because it's awful down there and it's loud and you guys smell and there's Cheetos everywhere. I was like, so of course I didn't say that. And I said, well, I'm very busy during that time. And of course I'm always busy, but I was like, all right, on the days that my schedule permits, why don't I do library in the lobby? Or I stole an idea from somebody, maybe somebody in this room, called it Library Unleashed, where the library, as the one student said, you need to go to the people. So I kept talking about how cool this was. I would do workshops like, wouldn't it be cool if you went to the people? I wasn't doing it. So I was like, all right, I must go to the people. So I put a card together. I had kids. I set up in the lobby. For, 3 lunches. Notice I went to the lobby, not in the cafeteria. I just hate it in there. I can't lie. But I sat there and I had books. And they came over. We talked about books. They signed out books. I had my little scanner. It was joyous. And I was like, why don't I do that more often? Me, go to the people. So find a way to go to the people. If you can't go to the people, get a student you can trust to go to the people. Take a cart of books, have them sit in the lobby, write it down on a pad of paper. Worst case scenario, they write down the wrong number and the book is lost forever. It doesn't matter. Just get out there. But again, that was a deliberate action. I talked about it. I was on board with it. I didn't do anything about it. So one day I was like, oh my God, this is on my list for 3 weeks, or 3 months probably. I'm going to the people, and I liked it. So now I go to the people. It doesn't happen as often as it probably should because, honestly, legitimately because of my schedule. I try not to ever turn down a chance to go on a field trip. They come my way a lot because I have the schedule that I can adjust, so I don't need a sub. That's really the only reason they first ask. Now they know I'm fun, and I have a lot to offer. So if you have a Apple Store near you, do you know they do coding lessons, or Microsoft? Free coding. So we took a group of 100 kids, not all at the same time, we had other things going on, to our mall, and they did like a whole coding program there. So again, I went to the people. Sometimes you gotta not do library stuff to be like deliberately connected. So I just thought that was a great picture of kids sitting in the Apple Store at our cool mall doing coding with this young cool guy. And they were like, well, why don't we have any young cool guys teaching coding? Okay. So, but it was deliberate. I deliberately am doing things differently now. I'm deliberately saying, is that worth my time? I'm deliberately letting things go because they are not high impact. I told you, I confessed, I know it's a library, like rite of passage. I hate anything to do with cataloging, and I would probably just put a Post-it note on and say, bring it back if you want, which is terrible. It's not a good, reliable way to be. But I got my Barb, who loves that stuff. So if something happens to her, I don't stand a chance, because I just like, do what you must with do this cataloging thing. She's like, isn't that your job? I was like, yeah, probably. But I deliberately step away from that. I deliberately don't care how neat the shelves are. I choose that because I'm like, as long as they can find what they want and it's not completely obstructive or stressing kids out, or kids are going to counseling because it's so messy, like, I don't care if they're in perfect order. I've got a kid that says we should do all, like, this whole shelf should just be fantasy volume 2, because then they'll ask for volume 1. He's like, I was like, give it a try. Like, what do I care if he's invested and he's speaking for other kids? Let's try it. When I do book talks, book tasting, I used to spend hours, like, you got to give me a week preparation because I got to take notes. And now I literally take a table with wheels. I put the books that kids all have heard of, Wonder and Hunger Games or whatever age you're at, Wimpy Kid. And then under each of those, I put some that I think are read-alikes. And then I'll say, you know what, you've all heard of Wonder, Augie, da-da-da. Well, here's one you might like that kind of also is a kid who champions for others, or a kid who has a disability, or kids who has physical challenge. And then I just do 30 seconds. It's the favorite thing in the world when I get done, and the more I read, of course, the more prepped I am. I don't ever lie. I just say, you know what, I haven't read this one, but Josh read it I just asked Josh, and he tells me everything. I said, Josh read it last week. He said, if you liked Harry Potter, the third one, this will be good, but if you like, I don't know. So I write down what Josh says, and then I just share the wisdom. But I deliberately stopped putting so much prep time into book talks because the kids love it, the teachers love it, it's a game changer. Books are going out in just rapid amounts now, and I believe they're reading them. And when they're not reading them, they're coming back and they have insight. They'll say, you know what, I tried this, I know you said I didn't like it. That's fine. But they're not just doing the fast grab, like I'll just take Wimpy Kid for the 100th time because teacher says I gotta have a book on my desk. There's less teacher guilt of, I don't know about you, but there was a stretch where like, oh my God, Mr. So-and-so walked by. Notice when I do principal, I always say Mr., which is bad. Mr. So-and-so walked by, and the kids were just reading. I'm mortified. And now they're like, how about that? Or superintendent walked by, and all the kids were reading. It's just a shift. And I am confident that I played a key role in that because I went to these meetings and said, we need to do more with this. Survey shows, people who want data, we did the survey. And I said, 87% of the students said they read less than 20 minutes at home. But they'd like to read at school. Like, why can't we provide that? We're a school. They're all stressed. They need quiet time. They need less screen time. I have the answer. Listen to me. And now no, it's not just me, but I do a lot of like preach it, sister kind of stuff. So it's deliberate. I'm spending less time on the stuff that I just don't think it's worth it's not getting the impact. And it changes over time. Maybe someday I'll be doing wrap up the books in a paper bag, and that'll be fun for me. Right now, not so much. And then the sharing. You've got to do the sharing, the showcase. Again, we don't like the word showcase. But by sharing, we heard about s'more newsletters. We heard about people doing emails, putting stuff in boxes, having brownies. Any way you can get the word out about how awesome you are, or how awesome things can be because they are connected to the library, their library. That's what you need to do. If you're not comfortable putting you in there, talk about your principal. I just nominated this literacy woman I'm talking about for award. She won an award. She's getting this amazing, well-deserved recognition connected to literacy. I know she's going to credit the library because of that. That wasn't a manipulative thing. It was a genuine, like, oh my God, none of this would have happened without Mrs. Wilson, but it's going to pay off 20-fold because she gets it. She gets it, and she's getting some nice recognition for that. Get kids involved. I know we say that all the time. Have the kids tell their story to the parents. Don't worry about sending something home to parents. If a kid is that invested, they're going to tell their parents, even teenagers. Take 10 minutes a week. Just block off 10 minutes and send an email or a reminder, whatever is the best way for communication, to the parent of the awesome kids. I'm telling you, if you want 10 minutes of joy in your life, do it a day, a week. I do it 10 minutes a week, and I just keep a little list on my desk of kids that have been awesome, big or little awesome, but just something good. If it's just like, I love seeing Josh walk through the door because I know he's going to take out $20. Dear Mrs. So-and-so, just want to tell you, your son makes my day. Really appreciate his positive attitude, whatever. Thanks. Sue Kowalski, librarian. I've been there long enough. Most of them know who I am. But just in case, I throw that in there because that's a connection. Every single time I get an email back, almost instantly, I have tears in my eyes. You don't know what you've done. This has changed my whole thing. I got to tell you, if you do it on a Thursday or Friday, it changes the whole culture of a weekend in a family. And I know not everybody's an email person, not all families are there, then put a note in a kid's backpack, staple it to a shirt, whatever you got to do. Get that word home so some kid, especially the kids that probably aren't getting that kind of recognition. I'm not for empty praise. If the kid's being a knucklehead and has been rude and disrespectful and throws, don't. They don't deserve it. But you got a kid, you're like, oh my God, you come in every morning and say good morning. That makes my whole day. Dear Mrs. So-and-so, your son comes in every morning. I'm telling you, it'll be the best 10 minutes you spent. That's not showcasing, look what I am as a person. That's doing what kids deserve, that's doing what families deserve, and that's showing that there's part of whoever they are that's connected to the library. That's an indirect way to showcase their talents. Because you know as well as I do, we all know there's kids who thrive in the library. That's not happening elsewhere. There are kids who, like they're reading that stack of books a week and failing ELA. What's the problem there? Okay, this is a book club. Again, we did something, the book discussion failed because the kid hadn't read it. We were doing Amal Unbound, so we made, I knew that was coming. We frosted cookies. I was supposed to make them in the shape of a hand and do henna cookies. I'm not very talented, so I did round ones, and we pretended they were hands. But the thing is, I sent kids home with a plate of cookies that they henna decorated. And it just said, if you haven't read it yet, try this book. It had nothing to do about, like, look how awesome I am. I made cookies with the kids. It just showed I'm a terrible baker, and they had fun with it, and they went home, and they said, what does this book have to do with cookies? Really nothing, but it's a great book, and if you want it, stop by. All right? I every year talk about deliberate action. Every year I'm on all these different committees. There's a legislative breakfast. I don't know if you have that in your regions where all the legislators usually go to a public library or a school library or a hospital library. It's a political activist kind of thing. Every year I go, and every year I say, why don't we do this in a school? Like, I can't get out, but you can come to us. So this year the woman in charge said, would you like to host it? I was like, that hosting events with important people, it's not really my thing. But I said, you know what? I got to step up. So we did it. We had, 75 really important people come to the library, have biscuits and juice or whatever they do. And I also got a team of kids who met with all those same legislators that I wouldn't have been able to get to. It wouldn't have been practical for me to put them on a bus, take permission slips, all that. So all these kids just talk to legislators, and they don't really care about who's important. Usually they don't know. They're like, hi, I'm Alex. Sure. This Alex is like, charge the welcome team. He talks like, and this guy's like, well, I'm a senator. And he's like, nice to meet you. Like, there's no like, senator. I'm sweating and nervous. And Alex is like, charge the welcome team. And he's like, what's the welcome team? He's like, we welcome people to school. So anyways, these kids, and then of course I invited their parents to come if they wanted to. Several parents came. And then I sent them a thank you note and saying, your daughter was awesome, your son was awesome. I sent a picture with them and the legislators. That's not saying, look how awesome I am. That's saying, thank you for letting your awesome kids be part of our library program. That's a different way to showcase things. And then the sharing, it all goes together. If people don't know what you're doing. So I'm going to be here today and tomorrow. Hopefully it goes well. My principal, administrative superintendent, they're not going to know what I'm doing here. I could be playing hooky for all they know. I need to let them know. I do a press release and say, this is where I went, this is what I learned, this is the turnkey thing that's in it for my teacher partners. Here's a copy of the slideshow, so that even if they don't look at it, they're like, oh, so she was out for 2 days, but that was legit. And I don't say like, oh my God, you know what I did this weekend? Not in a passing thing. I give all my administrators a folder, just anything but manila, because that's boring. Get a folder, put their name on it, say keep this in your drawer, and anytime you get something related to libraries that you want to share with me or that I give to you, put it in there. So to the point where when my vice principal got the call that she was getting this big award, she said, I was so prepared because as soon as they said it was the Library Association on the phone, I took out my folder because I thought they'd have questions about you. I was like, it wasn't about me. She goes, but I had my folder and it had all this stuff in there. So, and then I keep a desk on my box on my desk. Anytime I think like, oh, that would be something I should share with the principals, I just throw it in there. And then every once in a while, then I look at stuff like, oh, that's just stupid, throw that out. Or I make 3 copies and say, add to your library file. And I know digital is the way people are going, but something about getting away from digital and just saying, here's what I have for you. I don't request their time. I don't request, can I have a meeting? I just say, add it to your box. Doesn't hurt to add a little piece of chocolate to it or peanuts, or unless they have an allergy. Don't do that. Okay, so share what you're doing. Do a press release, put it on your webpage, get the word out. Anywhere you can, you've got 5 minutes in a class and the teacher's struggling with difficulties with technical. Just say, you know what, while your teacher's getting ready, let me tell you about a few things coming up. We've got this, we've got that, we've got this going on. Just wanted to thank Josh in the back for doing that. Make sure if you have any questions about this, Alex can help you. We've got some new books. And then the poor teacher's off the spotlight a minute, and then we carry on. And if you have a fixed schedule, same thing. Use it to kind of let the kids know. Give a kid a list of announcements and say, listen, before we do book checkout today, I'm going to have you tell them what's coming up. Have the kids stand in front of the class and say, hi, next week we have the author coming. He's coming on Tuesday for grades 4 or 5, whatever. Have the kids take some of the pressure off of you, and they're going to be so much more invested if they hear it. Okay, and I hear some of you talk about news channel or announcements or however you can have the kids do it. They're going to be more invested. They do our bulletin boards, they do my signs, they do, say, make a display that says this stuff is free and put it in the lobby. I said, just make a free sign. This girl's been working on this free sign. Yesterday was day 4 and she finished it. I was like, oh, but you know what? She's like looking in from the library, we're on the 2nd floor. She looks, she goes, that's my sign. I was like, oh my God, it could have been done. But I don't say that out loud. But she's so excited that her free sign is connected with the greeting cards that somebody gave me that I just put out. People need birthday cards and stuff. We just put out a table once in a while. She's excited. I said, wow, you did a nice job on that. And she goes, yeah, so I wrote an email. Dear Mrs. So-and-so, like your daughter's, what am I going to say? She took 4 days to make a free sign? No, I'm going to say she's dedicated, she's conscientious, she followed through. Like, she spent 4 days making this free sign on scrap paper. But gosh darn it, she's committed, and she has a sense of ownership. So the parents are gonna I think, be excited about that. Here's a couple things, like we have an electronic thing out in the parking lot there, and I thought, how come there's never anything about the library? And they're like, did you ever give it to Mrs. So-and-so? She puts it on. I was like, nope, I never did. So now I send her just some generic messaging that she can put on there, so as the ticker revolves, there's always something about books. There's always something about literacy. It's short messages, so I just give her a list of generic messaging about library and books, and it's always on there. So even if it just says school closed today because of snow, and then it'll say, what are you reading? And people are like, how come it's always about libraries on there? I'm like, huh. So I sneak some other things on there too, so they don't know it's just me. So over here, I've been using Canva. That's one of my favorites. And now I have this menu thing because people like food. And I know you can't see it in the fine print, but I have a menu, and I put it in all the teacher bathrooms. And it just says, hey, like this one says, anytime snacks. You can come for books, magazines. You can come for workspace, Chromebook help, and so on. And then quick meals, and then the entrees would be more of the big collaborative stuff. I'm not saying everybody spend an extra time in the bathroom to just read this, but I just put it out there. And if you've been in Syracuse for the last 6 months, it's depressing as heck. So the fact that there's lemons and blue, they don't care what it says. They're like, I like it, so I'm coming. So if you needed something like that, I can show you that. It's just Canva, a menu thing, and I changed it. Put our contact information on there. When we have new student teachers, I hand them a folder with this kind of stuff. When we have guests in the building, I'm like, hi, do you know we have this? I've gotten less good at consistently doing it, so I'm trying to be more strategic about it. I do a lot of it, but it's kind of like a flyer here and a newsletter there. I got to get back into the routine. But you know where your gaps are. You know what's working and what isn't. Last thing, let me just try this video one more time, and then I'll stop. All right, that's better sign. So, and if you guys know Flipgrid, and you know it's free for teachers. It's free. It used to be. So these are folks that I asked, I just said, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to a conference. I'm talking about collaboration. Do you have anything you'd like to share? Well, she's that little, Liza is so cute. So I'll just put it up there and see if it works.
Hi, librarians and supporters of librarians. My name is Shona Kelly, and I'm a DLA and social studies teacher for 6th grade at
Can you guys hear that?
Widow. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do with Mrs. Kowalski.
And again, I didn't say talk about how awesome I am. So please, I don't want you to think like, please brag about me, but we work so like seamlessly together that it'd just be like if she said to me, will you talk about literacy in 6th grade? I would inevitably say, well, Mrs. Kelly, that's her name. So I'm not doing this to say, oh, look how
amazing, incredible, heart and soul of the building librarian. So we've been focusing on literacy as a school, like a really, really big push for the last 3 years. And the ability to collaborate with Sue really allows us to do so much more than we could if we didn't have her, of course. Some of the many, many projects that we've worked on together include using Flipgrid, which is what we're doing right now. We've worked together on coming up with flip hunts, where the kids are kind of bouncing from one question to another around a space. We used the library because she has such a phenomenal library, and they were able to answer questions in each little station and record videos and practice their speaking and listening skills. That's just one little project, and you can do literally anything with that. You can tie it with any sort of curriculum. Another project that we've worked on several times is our March Madness, which is currently happening right now. We worked together to come up with 16 books that we have compete in bracket style.
Yeah, I don't want to take time on technology issues, but I'll make sure you have access to that. But the reason and there's others folks too, and I know we're getting toward the end, but the point is there are projects that Shona and I, that Kara and I, the other teachers and I are working on because I have deliberately, I don't want to say abandoned other things, but I've kind of been more strategic about who would be best served to do those other things. So I did a 6-day collaborative project, actually it's still going today and tomorrow, with 2 other teachers. We divided what needed to be done according to each other's strength. So Nicole has gotten really awesome at doing different tools for annotating articles and that kind of stuff. I could do it, but she's been doing it and she's got some things that are working better. So she's doing that. I might work with another teacher who says, like, I'm really good at that note taking. Could you take that over? I don't try to be a hero and take it all on. And I don't try and be a martyr and say, like, I'm only good at citations because I have the librarian stash. You know, like, I just say, you know what, let's do this. Or maybe I have a kid make a video. Or maybe I have a kid stand up and say, could you tell them what you did in social studies? How does, this teacher handle that? And could you teach the other kids this? So we strategically divide. So when I hear research project, I don't think I've got to do all the resources. I've got to do LibGuide or web page. I got to do this. I say, okay, this is my focus. This is their focus, this is her focus, and together we're going to be more amazing because we can rely on each other. And the kids don't care who's doing what. They don't see me as like only citations and books, and this one is all. Sometimes they're like, who's the person that's the annotation expert today? The kids, we work together in our space, in their space. I call it your place or mine, which sounds worse than it is. And we work where it's going to work best. We have kids that are better in a structured classroom with a board at the front. There are kids that are better laying on the floor with, kind of a little more abstract setting. So we even figure in the physical space. But because I have said I'm not going to focus on making sure kids come for lunch in their free time and we have wide open spaces for study hall to clog up, I say, you know what, that's lower priority. Our priority is instruction and literacy, and if it doesn't fit into those literacy goals, I don't stress about it. It's like people say, well, I see it all the time, like, oh my God, I have 600 kids in the library for lunch, and they make a mess. How does that at all fit in? I know you got bosses to answer to, but I'm thinking the day our supervisors say they have to come to you for lunch, I'm going to point to this mission statement and say, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the connection between them eating Cheetos in here and our literacy goals for the building, or a strategic plan for the building. So there's sometimes you have to kind of you have to positively advocate for yourself instead of feeling like a victim of I guess I got kids in there when they come in the morning for buses, and I got kids after school because they have nowhere to go, and I got lunch. You're basically just like a hall monitor then. So make sure any way you can advocate. So the leadership and the student investment, set yourself up with a mission statement if you don't have it, or vision, align it with big district goals, and if it doesn't match and it's stressing you out, let it go or advocate to let it go. I didn't find blind date with a book anywhere, so I took it out. You may find it's a perfect fit for your kids. I don't want to bash blind date with a book or book fairs. So, okay, so my final message to you, and then I'll stop if there's any questions or if we got to go. READS, you've got to have relationships, you've got to be enthusiastic, make some deliberate, active choices about what you're going to do, and share it with the people that need to know, which is always beyond just your principal. People are like, I give the annual report to my principal and I don't even think she reads it. Why would she? Like, do stuff all the way along and let people know. Let the parents know, let the kids, showcase the kids and the parents, and the rest will kind of kick into place. Thank you.